Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back and glad you could join me for part 2 of the History of Fageol Trucks. If you need a recap, be sure to check out part 1 to catch back up. Now, let's continue with part 2. On this last fold of the story, we head back to Frank and Will Fageol. After leaving ACF in 1927, they would come out with the Model 40, originally named the Model 100, which was a 40-passenger heavy-duty city transit bus featuring then monocoque construction. These buses were 1/3 larger than any single-decker bus built at the time. With a view to making all-floor space available to passengers, the Fageols decided to place the bus's power source under the floor. In doing this, they developed the first bus to have its power plant enclosed within the body. Two separate engines, as one was mounted under each longitudinal row of seats and making it accessible from either side of the bus. A smaller bus of similar design with one engine in front was offered from 1929. In 1929, a 1-ton twin-coach delivery van called the Twin Truck was introduced with either gas or electric power and front or rear drive. These trucks featured a unique patented operating system that came to Will Fageol one day as he watched a milkman making his rounds with a horse and wagon. The horse would stop at the edge of a yard and the milkman would come across the lawn to the front door and make the delivery. The horse would then move to the next yard where the milkman would meet him and start the routine all over. Will Fageol asked himself, why couldn't a truck do the same thing? He then came up with the answer, and the answer was a stand drive clutch brake mechanism. When the driver stood on the pedal, the truck moved. When he stepped off the pedal, the vehicle could coast to a stop, doing in effect just what the horse would have done. One driver told of actually walking his truck by putting it in its extra low first gear and keeping the right wheels in the curb gutter. The twin truck proved to be a huge success with its stand drive mechanism and was well suited for milk, bakery, and parcel deliveries. By 1933, most US bus manufacturers had adopted the Fageol's flat front design for transit and intercity service, but most were equipped with only a single engine. Twin coach had come to rely predominantly on transversely mounted engines in the rear. The Model 37R introduced that year featured this arrangement. The earliest twin coaches were equipped with Waukesha engines, but the Fageols soon turned to Hercules and used only that make of engine through 1943. Later in 1934, after Hercules developed a satisfactory diesel, Twin Coach became the first US manufacturer to build a bus with a factory-installed diesel engine. Ironically, the company staked its post-war future on lighter weight, lower cost gasoline and propane engines, and this was a factor in its eventual demise. About 300 diesel-electric models also were built in the mid to late 1930s and were used mostly in New York City. The Super Twin introduced in 1938 was a 58-passenger, 4-axle, 14-ton diesel-electric that was hinged vertically in the middle to absorb road shocks. However, it was not hinged horizontally and could not bend around corners. Late in the war, plans were announced for a new twin with 2 diesel engines, developing a total of 300 horsepower and a 750 pound-foot of torque. It was claimed this powerhouse could accelerate to 60 miles per hour in 15 seconds. However, that idea evidently died and no post-war twin coach design readily lent itself to the installation of diesel engines. Near the end of the war, Twin Coach purchased the Buffalo factory to continue operation of its successful aircraft division, while also using portions of it for bus assembly. In addition, a Canadian bus assembly plant was set up at Fort Erie, Ontario, across the Peace Bridge from Buffalo. At the end of the war, another building was put into service in Kent to house an engine plant. The first product turned out was a lightweight high-compression OHC 6 of 404 cubic inches. In the post-war buses, this power plant was turned on one side under the floor and coupled to a Spicer torque converter. The styling of post-war 41 and 44 passenger twin coaches was completely new, with a trend-setting 6-piece windshield, variations of which were seen on some flexible and GM buses for many years to come. Just as the original 1927 twin coaches would have fit into the 1940s, the 1946 models would have been at home in the 1960s and even the 70s. By 1948, pent-up demand from the war years had been largely satisfied. In spite of 1,500 or more propane-powered twin coaches being placed in service in Chicago, Omaha, San Antonio, and Dallas, and compiling outstanding service records there, most operators were buying diesels. Twin Coach's gamble on gasoline and propane power had not paid off, despite having reached number 2 in sales among American bus builders. Its days as a city transit manufacturer were now numbered. A tremendous post-war sales surge was not enough, and 1948 was the last good year Fageol enjoyed in the transit business. The future belonged to the diesel, and of all US bus manufacturers, GM alone was firmly positioned to take advantage of that reality. Twin Coach considered adapting the 600 CID English Leyland diesel for bus use, but determined that by the time it was ready for the market, any competitive advantage it might offer would be lost. There was one last attempt to remain in the ground transportation arena. In 1950, it was announced that the Fageol name would be revived for the Super Freighter. This patented self-propelled trailer was designed by L.J. Fageol, Frank's son, who was now president of Twin Coach, but better known in some circles as a speedboat racer and IndyCar owner and designer. Built using a 35-foot all-stainless Fruhauf van, the Super Freighter looked like a van trailer with a front steering axle and a windshield in its rounded nose, which in truth it was. The original Super Freighter was powered by a Fageol propane bus engine mounted under the floor. A second version used the Leyland diesel with a Fageol-designed injection system. A variation developed under the Super Freighter patent using the Fruhauf body and 477 Fageol under the floor gasoline engine was sold to the Army as a convertible, a vehicle that could be converted from a bus to a cargo truck, troop carrier, or ambulance. An initial 500 of these F-32F convertibles were ordered. Eventually, a total of nearly 1,600 were put in service for the Army, Navy, and Air Force. At the time, this was the largest order ever placed by the combined military forces for non-tactical vehicles. The same basic design was used for highway post offices. The one-piece freighter concept earned its greatest acceptance with the Fageol van, a slightly less trailer-looking vehicle that nonetheless made use of the Fruhauf body with its international chassis. The van came in lengths of 20 to 35 feet, with wheelbases of 108 inches to 243 inches and payload capacities of up to 33,000 pounds. Twin Coach advertised its truck-trailer hybrid as having up to 200 cubic feet more cargo space than any competitive design. Van mechanical components, including engines, were largely international harvester, and the assembled units were sold by international dealers. The engine was contained under a hinged doghouse between the seats, just as it would be on most cab-over engine trucks of the coming years. The vans were moderately successful and stayed in production at Kent along with highway post offices and the small Pony Express postal delivery vans, until 1956, when operations there ceased. Van purchasers included United Parcel Service and many furniture and household movers. The last bus wearing the Twin Coach label, and that label alone, left the factory in late 1951. The final 155 buses were produced from late 1951 and 1952 and were tagged as Fageol liners. They were the last of some 14,700 transit buses produced by Twin Coach. At the end of 1952, the Twin Coach transit bus business and part of the Kent plant was sold to Flexible. After the Kent facility closed, Flexible moved bus production 65 miles southwest to its hometown of Loudonville, Ohio. Twin Coach remained successful in the business of manufacturing aircraft components in Buffalo and marine engines in Kent at its still open engine subsidiary, the Fageol Products Company. By 1958, Fageol Products had closed, with the marine engine division eventually becoming part of Homelight, and at this point, Kent was now left with only memories of Fageol. In 1962, Twin Coach became Twin Industries Corp. On December 31st, 1963, Bell Intercontinental Corp. Acquired control of Twin Industries and merged it with its Wheelabrator division to form Wheelabrator Corp. As a Bell subsidiary. Some Flexible products carried the Flexible Twin Coach label until 1962, when Flexible's 10-year right to use the Twin Coach name expired. Lastly, in 1968, the name was reprised for one more tour of duty by a Kent, Ohio firm called Highway Products Company, and used on the 900 or so light-duty city transit buses they built through 1975 in the old Kent plant. These were the last buses built with even a slight link to the Fageol heritage. Fageol and Twin Coach may have not been extremely huge in the truck or bus game, but their innovativeness was huge for the future. Many concepts, products, and features taken for granted today first sprang from Fageol ingenuity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings you up to date with the history of Fageol Trucks. Thanks guys for watching part 2 of the history of Fageol Trucks. Before you leave, like the video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. What do you guys think of Fageol Trucks? This month we have 10% off metal polish, boot brushes, top stack, top part of the stack kit only, headlights on all trucks, and 50% off Talladega fiberglass fenders at jackschromeshop.com. If you want to stay up to date with the new projects coming your way, or just discuss all things chrome, tune into our live podcast, The Chrome Corner, Wednesdays at noon with our host, Dave Coleman. Thanks again guys for watching. I'll see you next time, and remember, if your rig don't shine, you don't know jack.